In the grand halls of a billionaire's estate, music was considered entertainment, an elegant background to cocktail parties and polished dinners. But one evening, what began as a casual request meant only to amuse the guests turned into something unforgettable. A black maid's daughter, shy and unassuming, was asked to sit at the grand piano and play for fun. No one expected much. After all, she wasn't trained, and to the wealthy onlookers, she was invisible. Yet when her small fingers touched the keys, the room fell silent. What followed wasn't just music, it was genius. A moment that would shatter assumptions, challenge prejudice, and change the course of her life forever. What would you have done if you were in that room, witnessing a child reveal a gift so extraordinary that it silenced even the wealthiest critics? Make sure to stay until the very end, because this story will not only surprise you, it might just change the way you see hidden talent forever. The billionaire was known for her wealth, her influence, and her extravagant gatherings. Inside her estate stood a grand piano, a glossy black centerpiece in a room designed to impress. For her, it wasn't about music. It was about display, a symbol of luxury that added to the perfection of her home. Guests often admired it, though few ever played. In her household worked a maid, a quiet woman who dedicated herself tirelessly to her duties. She had a daughter, a girl who often lingered in the background, unnoticed, carrying her school books while her mother cleaned. To the guests, she was invisible, just another shadow in the life of the wealthy. But what none of them knew was that this girl carried within her something extraordinary. She had grown up listening to sounds others overlooked, the hum of machines, the rhythm of footsteps, the harmony of raindrops against windows. These weren't just noises to her, they were pieces of music. Without access to lessons, teachers, or instruments, she taught herself by ear, recreating melodies in her head and tapping them out on any surface she could find. Music became her secret world, one she never dared to share beyond the quiet of her own mind. That night, when the billionaire jokingly suggested the maid's daughter should play the piano, it wasn't meant as an opportunity. It was meant as entertainment for the wealthy guests, a passing moment of amusement. No one expected her to actually know what to do, much less create anything worth hearing. To them, it was harmless fun, a way to fill the silence before the wine glasses clinked again. But as the girl approached the piano, her small frame reflected. In its polished surface, something stirred within her, a mixture of fear and possibility. This was her chance, even if no one realized it. The laughter around the room was subtle but unmistakable. Guests exchanged amused glances as the little girl slid onto the piano bench, her feet dangling far from the floor. To them, it was a novelty, and the unscripted performance that would surely end in clumsy notes and nervous giggles. Even the billionaire smirked, sipping her wine, expecting nothing more than a few misplaced keys before the girl gave up. But the maid stood in the corner, her hands tightening around the tray she carried. She knew her daughter's secret. She had heard the hums in the kitchen while she worked, the rhythms tapped on countertops, the soft imitation of songs that played faintly on radios. She knew there was something different in her child, something rare. Yet in this room, filled with wealth and judgment, she also knew her daughter was being set up to be mocked. The girl placed her hands on the keys, hesitant at first, as though she was touching something sacred. For a moment, silence stretched thin in the room. Then she pressed down, one note, then another. What came next startled everyone. Instead of broken, jumbled sounds, the room filled with a melody that was not only flawless, but alive. The child's fingers danced with precision and emotion far beyond her years, weaving notes together with a mastery that should have been impossible for someone who had never taken a lesson. The air shifted. The laughter stopped. Guests froze in their seats, eyes fixed on the girl who seemed transformed before their eyes. No one had expected this. They came to watch a spectacle, but instead, They were witnessing genius unfolding, in real time. Yet beneath the awe, something else brewed. Whispers began at the edges of the room. How could a maid's daughter possess such talent? Surely it was a trick or luck, or something that would fade in moments. Their disbelief was laced with prejudice, an unwillingness to believe that brilliance could come from someone society deemed unworthy. The billionaire herself leaned forward, her smirk gone, her eyes narrowing with curiosity. She had invited this performance as a joke, yet now she was confronted with something that unsettled her. For years she had surrounded herself with the finest musicians money could buy, but none had played with such raw, unfiltered beauty. Still, rather than admire, her first instinct was suspicion. Could this girl really be this gifted? Or was she, somehow, mocking her in return? Meanwhile, the girl kept playing, unaware of the storm of emotions swirling in the room. For her, this was freedom. Each note was a release of the music she had carried inside for so long, a chance to finally let it breathe. She wasn't playing for the billionaire or the guests or even her mother. She was playing because for the first time she could. And as the final notes echoed into silence, the room erupted, not in laughter, not in polite applause, but in stunned quiet. A child who was supposed to fail had instead unveiled a brilliance none of them could deny. And though some clapped reluctantly, the weight of the moment lingered, heavy and undeniable. The silence after her final note was deafening. For a moment, the grand estate, usually filled with chatter, clinking glasses, and shallow laughter, felt like a cathedral. Every eye was on the girl, her small hands still resting lightly on the keys, her chest rising and falling as if she had just run a great distance. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't waiting for applause. She simply sat there, lost in the echo of what she had released into the world. Then came the reaction. Some of the guests, caught off guard, began clapping hesitantly. Others whispered in disbelief, exchanging looks that revealed more than words ever could. Their surprise wasn't only at the beauty of the music, it was at her. The maid's daughter, the girl they barely acknowledged, had just outshone every performer who had ever graced this room. The billionaire herself didn't clap. She sat frozen, her wine glass untouched, her face unreadable. Inside, however, she felt something she hadn't in years, a crack in her certainty. She had always believed talent came with privilege, that genius was cultivated with money, teachers, and opportunity. Yet here in her home, a child who had none of those things had revealed a brilliance so undeniable it rattled her core. But not everyone saw it that way. A man in the back muttered that it must have been luck. Another scoffed that she had probably memorized a simple tune. The prejudice was sharp, their unwillingness to accept that someone like her could embody greatness. And in that resistance, the girl's accomplishment became even more powerful, because no matter what they said, they could not erase what they had just heard. The maid stood with tears welling in her eyes, her heart torn between pride and fear. Pride, because her daughter had just proven to the world what she always knew. Fear, because in this world of power and privilege, gifts like hers were not always celebrated. They were often stolen, exploited, or crushed under the weight of envy. And in that fragile moment, as the child quietly slipped off the piano bench, the room itself seemed to hold its breath. Something irreversible had happened. What began as a cruel attempt at amusement had turned into a revelation, and nothing would ever be the same again.